The airport was buzzing with the usual morning chaos, wheels rolling, announcements echoing, and the faint aroma of coffee lingering in the terminals. Among the crowd, two identical twin girls, Jasmine and Jade, both 12, clutched their backpacks and scanned the long line for their flight. They had been promised priority boarding as part of a family upgrade, but the flight attendants seemed unconcerned. Their excitement wavered as the line moved slowly, each passing moment amplifying the tension that had begun to coil in their small chests. "Mom said we could board first," Jasmine whispered, her voice barely audible over the chatter around them. Jade nodded, her eyes wide, scanning the faces of the airline staff. Both girls were dressed neatly, school uniforms pressed and shoes polished. Their matching headbands made them even more noticeable, though for the wrong reasons today. When they reached the front of the line, a young gate agent looked down at them with a dismissive frown. "I'm sorry," the agent said flatly, "but you can't board yet. Priority boarding isn't for everyone." Jade blinked. "But we're supposed to." "No exceptions," the agent interrupted. His tone was firm, but there was an unmistakable edge of irritation, a subtle but palpable bias that left the twins frozen in disbelief. Around them, other passengers murmured quietly, some shooting curious glances, others ignoring the scene entirely. The girl's mother stepped forward, her face tightening with frustration, but she knew arguing wouldn't help. From a distance, Michael Carter, CEO of the airline and father of the twins, had just arrived at the terminal. He had planned this trip carefully, an early morning family getaway, yet what he saw made his stomach twist. His daughters were being denied what was rightfully theirs. The sight of the gate agent's dismissive attitude toward Jasmine and Jade ignited a quiet fury within him. He straightened his tie and moved with measured steps toward the counter. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. The agent barely looked up. "These are my daughters, and they are entitled to priority boarding." The agent paused, glancing at the girls, then back at Michael. "Sir, company policy." "I am the CEO," Michael said, cutting him off. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Around them, passengers began to notice the tension rising. Phones were subtly raised to record the interaction, whispers growing louder. "My daughters will board immediately, or this flight will not depart as scheduled." The agent's face flushed, a mix of fear and embarrassment creeping in. He opened his mouth, closed it again, unsure of how to respond. Michael's presence alone carried weight. The authority he wielded was absolute, and anyone who doubted it would soon regret their hesitation. Jasmine and Jade looked at their father, their eyes wide with both relief and awe. It was one thing to hear stories about their father's power in boardrooms and executive meetings, but seeing it firsthand, seeing the way the entire terminal seemed to hold its breath around Hemet, was something else entirely. "You see," Michael said, his tone softening slightly as he crouched to meet their gaze, "never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Not in life, and certainly not here." At that moment, the airline staff moved quickly to comply, hurriedly allowing the twins to pass. Michael's heart still raced though, because he knew this incident was symptomatic of a larger problem. Bias, assumptions, and subtle racism had no place anywhere, especially not in his company. As the girls walked past the gate, holding their mother's hand, Michael remained behind, calling his operations team on his phone. Every flight in the airport would remain grounded until proper protocol was reinforced. He would not allow this to happen again, not on his watch. The murmurs around the terminal swelled into audible chatter, and soon every passenger was aware of the unfolding drama, and Michael knew this was only the beginning. Michael's phone call to the operations team crackled with urgency, each word precise and deliberate. "Hold all departures," he instructed, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "I want every gate manager briefed immediately. We're going to review boarding procedures for the entire fleet. No exceptions, no delays, and no excuses. I want this handled now." The line went silent for a moment, then the team acknowledged the order, their voices tinged with awe at the authority he wielded. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade had found seats near the boarding gate, their small hands clutching each other's tightly. Their mother whispered words of comfort, but her own frustration simmered beneath the surface. She glanced at the flight attendants, who now seemed nervous, flitting about like startled birds, aware that the situation had escalated beyond their control. Parents with young children gave sympathetic glances, while business travelers tapped impatiently at their phones, oblivious to the unfolding drama, or perhaps unwilling to confront the disruption. The twins' eyes followed every movement, sensing the tension that still hung in the air like thick smoke. Jasmine, usually the braver of the two, leaned toward her sister. "Do you think Dad's going to make them listen?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jade nodded slowly. "He always does," she replied, a flicker of determination in her gaze. Both girls felt a strange mix of fear and pride. This was their father in action, the man who commanded rooms, corporations, and even entire airports when necessary. At the gate, the airline manager had arrived, flanked by security personnel. His steps were hurried, his face pale. "Mr. Carter," he said, almost stumbling over his words, we didn't realize it was your daughters. There was a mix-up in the boarding list. We'll get this resolved immediately." Michael's gaze was steady, unflinching. A mix-up, he repeated, his voice calm but icy. Let me make this perfectly clear. There will be no mix-ups, no oversight, and certainly no discriminatory treatment while my family is here. If anyone feels uncertain about their responsibilities, now is the time to step aside. The manager swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Right away. Across the terminal, word spread quickly. Phones emerged from pockets, videos were being recorded, and passengers murmured in excitement and disbelief. The twins, initially mortified by the attention, now felt an unexpected rush of validation. They had been seen, not as children to be ignored, but as individuals whose dignity mattered. Michael allowed a brief smile toward Jasmine and Jade before straightening and addressing the staff further. Let this be a lesson. Policies exist to ensure fairness and respect. Any deviation from that, whether intentional or not, will have consequences. I expect every employee to act with professionalism at all times. His words were measured but heavy, like a hammer striking an anvil, leaving no room for doubt. The airline staff scrambled, updating boarding lists and checking identities with a new urgency. Passengers whispered among themselves, sensing that they were witnessing more than a family dispute. They were witnessing accountability, a rare glimpse of authority exercised with both power and moral clarity. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, feeling the tension in her small shoulders begin to ease. Jade squeezed her hand, both of them absorbing the gravity of the moment. Dad's amazing, Jasmine said softly, almost to herself. Jade nodded, eyes shining with admiration. He always knows what to do, and while the girls were boarding, their father remained near the counter, overseeing the process with a meticulous eye. Every movement of the staff was under his careful scrutiny. He would not let negligence or bias slip through. Not today, not ever. The twins walked down the jet bridge, their small feet padding softly against the metal floor, yet every step felt monumental. Passengers on the plane craned their necks, whispering among themselves as the sisters passed, their matching school bags bouncing lightly with each step. The cabin crew hurried to assist, their earlier indifference replaced by a flurry of nervous efficiency. Jasmine and Jade felt the weight of every eye in the cabin, but instead of fear, there was a newfound pride swelling in their chests. Their father's presence had turned what should have been a humiliating experience into a moment of triumph. Michael followed shortly after. Though he stayed near the back of the plane, he needed to ensure that the boarding process was flawless, but also that no further incident would escalate. His eyes scanned the cabin, noting small details: a passenger's unattended carry-on blocking the aisle, a flight attendant moving too slowly, the subtle tension among the staff. Everything was under his scrutiny. He was accustomed to running companies, but managing a crisis in real time, in a crowded airport, and on board an aircraft, required a different kind of precision. Dad, look, Jade whispered, pointing to the other passengers. Some were staring, some were recording, and a few, mostly older travelers, were smiling in encouragement. Jasmine leaned closer to her sister. It's like everyone knows what just happened, she said softly, her voice tinged with awe. Yeah, Jade replied, and they know we didn't do anything wrong. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. They had been seen, validated, and protected. As the last few passengers settled into their seats, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 412, we'll be departing shortly. There was a pause, then a softer addition, and for some of our passengers, today's boarding process was handled with care and attention due to special circumstances. A subtle murmur of curiosity ran through the cabin. Michael's presence was not mentioned by name, but everyone on the plane knew the tension had not gone unnoticed. Down below, at the airport terminal, news crews had begun to gather. Social media feeds were already lighting up with videos of the confrontation, and hashtags started trending within minutes. CEO Dad shuts down discrimination at airport and twin girls board safely thanks to father were among the first to appear. Michael had anticipated some media attention, but he remained focused on the immediate responsibility: his daughter's safety, dignity, and comfort. On board, Jasmine and Jade finally relaxed into their seats, their mother placing a hand on each of their shoulders. You girls were incredible, she whispered. I'm so proud of you. Jasmine smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. It wasn't us, she said. It was Dad. He made sure everything was right. Jade leaned her head against her sister's shoulder. Yeah, he always knows what to do. Michael took his seat nearby, but his mind remained active. He began drafting internal memos on his phone, detailing corrective measures for all staff involved in the incident. Training sessions on bias awareness, customer service protocols, and accountability would be mandatory. No one in his airline would ever again underestimate the importance of equality and respect. Not on his watch. Meanwhile, the flight attendants circulated through the cabin, offering apologies and assistance. Their initial nervousness had shifted to a careful professionalism, a clear acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation. Even passengers who had been annoyed by the boarding delay seemed to soften, recognizing the importance of what had transpired. Michael noticed their subtle change in demeanor, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. His daughters were safe, their dignity preserved, and the lesson had been communicated without compromise. The engines roared to life, and the plane began taxiing toward the runway. Through the windows, the airport terminal receded, and with it, the chaos and scrutiny of the day's events. Jasmine and Jade pressed their faces against the glass, watching as the crowds grew smaller. Their father reached over, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "Remember this," he said quietly. "Always stand up for yourself and those you love. And never let anyone treat you as less than you are." As the plane lifted off the runway, climbing steadily into the sky, the family felt a collective sense of victory. It was more than just a boarding incident, it was a statement. And for Michael Carter, it was a reaffirmation of the principles he had built his life and company upon: respect, fairness, and unwavering protection of those who mattered most. The clouds stretched out before them, endless and untouchable, yet the world below had been reminded of something essential. When courage, authority, and love intersect, injustice stands no chance. Once the plane reached cruising altitude, Michael settled into his seat, but his mind was far from relaxed. The boarding incident had been resolved for now, but he knew the ripple effects would be felt throughout the airline. He pulled out his laptop and began drafting a company-wide directive, ensuring that every employee, from gate agents to flight attendants to operations managers, understood that the treatment of his daughters was unacceptable and would never happen again. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade had pulled out books to distract themselves, though their thoughts kept drifting back to the confrontation at the gate. "Dad really shut them down," Jasmine whispered, flipping a page without really reading. Jade nodded, her eyes wide. "I've never seen anyone stand up like that before," she said softly. They both smiled, sharing a quiet pride in knowing that their father had not only protected them but had also made a powerful statement about fairness and respect. The flight attendants moved quietly through the aisles, offering drinks and snacks with careful, attentive service. Their earlier flustered demeanor had completely shifted. They greeted the twins politely, offering warm smiles and gentle encouragement. It was clear that the staff had been briefed immediately after the incident, and Michael noted the subtle but meaningful change in their behavior. For him, every detail mattered. Dignity was not negotiable. In the cockpit, the captain had been informed of the situation and now worked closely with ground control to ensure that all delayed flights at the airport were being managed effectively. The news of Michael's intervention had already begun to circulate among airport staff, creating a cautious awareness. Some employees whispered anxiously about the CEO's decisive actions, while others felt relief that the situation had been handled without escalating further. As the flight continued, Michael's phone buzzed with notifications. Social media posts, videos, and live streams were rapidly circulating, depicting the moment when he had confronted the gate agent. Hashtags like #CEO protects daughters, #stand up to bias, and #airport justice were trending, capturing the attention of thousands. Michael glanced at the comments, many praising his actions, some criticizing the delay, but most acknowledging the importance of accountability. He allowed himself a brief smile, knowing the message was reaching beyond the terminal. Jasmine leaned against the window, watching the clouds drift lazily beneath the plane. "I think everyone will remember today," she said quietly. Jade nodded, still holding her sister's hand. "Yeah, they'll see that standing up for what's right matters," she replied. Their mother smiled softly at them, brushing a strand of hair behind Jasmine's ear. "Your father taught you well," she said. "But remember, it's not just about power, it's about courage too." Michael looked over at his daughters, feeling a profound sense of pride. The incident at the airport had been a stark reminder of the biases that still lingered in society, even in places meant to be professional and impartial. But it had also been an opportunity to protect, to educate, and to set an example. He would ensure that the lesson extended far beyond his family, reaching every employee and, ultimately, every passenger who flew with the airline. By the time the plane reached its destination, the family had settled into a rhythm of quiet reflection. The girls chatted softly about their excitement for the trip ahead, but the lessons of the morning lingered in their minds. Michael, observing them with a watchful eye, felt a renewed commitment. The incident was more than a confrontation, it was a catalyst for change, and he would see it through to completion. When the plane touched down, the crew greeted the passengers with a professionalism that seemed almost rehearsed yet sincere. Michael escorted his daughters off the plane, ensuring that they remained shielded from any lingering negativity. Airport staff, now fully aware of who they were dealing with, treated them with utmost respect. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, and murmurs of recognition followed them down the jet bridge. The family stepped into the terminal, greeted by a combination of passengers, media personnel, and airline staff. Michael's presence commanded attention, but his focus was singular: his daughters. He allowed them a brief moment to bask in the triumph, but he knew the next steps were crucial. Accountability, education, and systemic change had to follow, or the morning's victory would be hollow. And as they moved through the terminal, Michael's mind was already racing with strategies, initiatives, and policies designed to ensure that no one, especially not his daughters, would ever face such indignity again. The day had begun with a small act of injustice, but it was ending as a decisive declaration. respect, fairness, and dignity would prevail. Back at the airline's corporate headquarters, Michael wasted no time. The moment he returned from the airport, he convened an emergency meeting with his top executives. The conference room hummed with tension. Employees knew that when the CEO was personally involved, there would be no shortcuts. "We have a serious issue," Michael began, his tone calm but carrying the weight of authority. "Two of our youngest passengers were denied priority boarding because of negligence and, quite frankly, bias. This cannot happen again." Executives exchanged uneasy glances. While they were accustomed to dealing with operational mishaps, bias of this nature, compounded by public exposure, was unprecedented. Michael continued, his words deliberate. "I want a full review of every employee involved, from gate agents to supervisors. I want retraining programs implemented immediately, and I want it documented. Every staff member must understand that respect and fairness are non-negotiable values of this airline." One manager attempted to interject, offering excuses about procedural errors and miscommunications. Michael raised a hand. "Excuses do not correct mistakes. Apologies do not prevent recurrence. Action does, and action starts now." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling like a physical presence. Even the most seasoned executives understood that this was not just a PR issue, it was a moral imperative. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade were settling into their hotel rooms, buzzing with excitement from the trip ahead, yet still replaying the airport scene in their minds. "Did you see their faces when Dad told them?" Jasmine asked, her eyes wide. Jade nodded, smiling. "Yeah, I think they'll remember us for a long time," she said softly. Both girls felt a sense of empowerment that was entirely new. They had been the targets of unfair treatment, yet they had emerged with their dignity intact. Across the airline network, Michael's orders had already begun to take effect. Gate agents were receiving direct communication about proper boarding procedures. Training modules were being updated to emphasize equality, respect, and customer rights. Staff members who had been involved in the incident were required to attend sensitivity workshops and one-on-one meetings with their supervisors. Even pilots and senior crew members were briefed to ensure no repeat incidents would occur. The CEO's presence in the airport, now widely documented across social media, had also sparked a wave of attention among passengers. Many were applauding the decisive action, posting stories, and sharing videos of Michael intervening. A growing number of customers praised the airline's accountability, seeing in the CEO a reflection of the values they expected from a company they trusted with their safety and comfort. In the hotel suite, the twins' mother watched them unpack their bags, feeling a mixture of relief and admiration. "Your father is remarkable," she said softly. "But today wasn't just about him, it was about all of us standing up for what's right." Jasmine looked thoughtful. "I think I understand now," she said. "It's not just about being powerful, it's about using that power to protect others." Jade nodded in agreement, hugging her backpack tightly. "Yeah, and making sure no one else has to go through what we did." Back at headquarters, Michael was drafting memos and outlining a comprehensive plan for the next quarter. He wanted every employee to internalize that accountability was non-negotiable. Every boarding agent, flight attendant, and airport staff member would undergo a training session, and mechanisms would be put in place to ensure oversight and immediate correction if a passenger's rights were ever threatened again. The airline's PR team began preparing statements for release, emphasizing the company's commitment to equality, customer service, and proactive measures. While media coverage was inevitable, Michael insisted that the focus remain on systemic improvement rather than sensationalism. His goal was clear: no child, no passenger, should ever face the humiliation his daughters had endured. As night fell, Michael finally allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. His daughters were safe, respected, and empowered. The airline had been reminded of its duty to every passenger, and systemic changes were already underway. The incident had been unexpected, chaotic, and challenging, but it had also been an opportunity to set a precedent, to reinforce values, and to lead by example. And as he looked out at the city lights stretching endlessly beneath him, Michael Carter knew that the events of the day would resonate far beyond the airport, shaping not just policies but hearts, minds, and the culture of an entire organization. The morning news cycle was relentless. By sunrise, video clips of Michael confronting the gate agent had gone viral, shared across social media platforms with commentary ranging from admiration to disbelief. Headlines screamed phrases like "CEO stands up for daughters" and "airport bias exposed," accompanied by countless hashtags that connected millions of viewers to the story. Employees at the airline scrolled through the feeds with a mixture of pride and anxiety, aware that the eyes of the public and their CEO were on them. Michael, reviewing the media coverage from his hotel suite, remained composed but vigilant. "This isn't about fame," he said quietly to his assistant, who had joined him to provide updates. "This is about accountability. Every word, every clip, every comment must reinforce the message. Our passengers' dignity is paramount." He marked passages from news reports, noting inaccuracies and potential areas for clarification. A carefully worded press release would follow, ensuring the airline's commitment to fairness and equality was unmistakably clear. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade were already being asked for interviews. Social media influencers and local reporters wanted to capture the story of the twin girls who had been denied boarding, only to be defended by their father. Their mother carefully managed the requests, ensuring the girls were comfortable and not overwhelmed. "Remember," she said, "your father's actions were powerful, but your words should be honest and kind." Jasmine nodded thoughtfully. "We just want people to know it's wrong to treat someone unfairly," she said. Jade added, "And that standing up matters, no matter how big or small you are." Back at the airline, managers and staff convened for emergency briefings. Gate agents who had been involved in the incident faced serious scrutiny. Each one was required to review their actions, explain the decisions they had made, and participate in training sessions designed to prevent future mistakes. Some staff members were visibly shaken, realizing that negligence and bias were no longer tolerated, especially with the CEO taking a personal interest. Michael had made it clear this was not simply about policy violations. This was about culture. The internal emails began pouring in. Employees expressed a mixture of apology, fear, and determination. Many admitted that they had underestimated the importance of empathy and attentiveness in their roles. Michael responded to each report personally, emphasizing accountability, the opportunity for improvement, and the expectation that the airline's values would be reflected in every interaction. His approach was firm yet instructive. He demanded excellence without demeaning his team, fostering both responsibility and growth. The public's reaction was overwhelmingly supportive. Comments flooded social media praising Michael's decisive action and dedication to fairness. Parents, in particular, resonated with the story, admiring the lengths he went to protect his daughters and uphold principles of equality. Yet there were critics as well. Travelers inconvenienced by grounded flights voiced frustration, and some questioned whether a CEO should personally intervene. Michael acknowledged the feedback but remained unwavering. Dignity and respect took precedence over convenience. By midday, the airline had issued an official statement. It outlined the incident, reaffirmed commitment to equality, and detailed measures being implemented to ensure such events would never occur again. Training sessions for staff were mandatory, and oversight protocols were strengthened to detect and correct misconduct proactively. The press coverage highlighted the steps taken rather than the drama, reflecting Michael's insistence on substance over spectacle. Jasmine and Jade spent the afternoon reflecting on the morning's events. "It feels like a dream," Jasmine said, twirling a strand of hair nervously. "We went from being ignored to being heard." Jade nodded. "Yeah, and Dad made sure it wasn't just us. He made sure everyone would be treated fairly next time." Their mother smiled, brushing a gentle hand across their shoulders. "Your father's actions today were extraordinary, but the lessons are what matter most. Courage, fairness, and standing up for what's right. Never forget that." Even as the family prepared for the evening, Michael's mind was active, planning follow-ups with airport management, staff workshops, and community outreach initiatives. The incident had ignited change not only within the airline but across the public consciousness. Employees, passengers, and onlookers had all witnessed that accountability was real, immediate, and enforceable. For Michael, it was more than a moment of personal authority. It was a transformative opportunity for systemic improvement, one that would resonate long after the headlines faded. By the next morning, the ripple effects of the airport incident were palpable across the airline. Staff gathered in briefing rooms, their faces a mix of nervousness and determination. Michael had mandated company-wide meetings, not just to review the incident, but to reshape the organizational culture. He believed that one mistake rooted in negligence or bias could never be allowed to repeat, and everyone understood that the CEO's personal involvement meant there was no room for error. Jasmine and Jade, meanwhile, had begun to absorb the magnitude of what had happened. Their father's decisive action had not only protected them but it also sent a powerful message to the airline staff and the broader public. "Do you think people will really change?" Jasmine asked, her eyes thoughtful. Jade shrugged, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I hope so, but if Dad says something needs to happen, it usually does." Their mother joined them quietly, placing a comforting hand on each of their shoulders. "What you witnessed today," she said softly, "is what real leadership looks like: courage, fairness, and taking responsibility." Back at headquarters, Michael oversaw the first round of mandatory training sessions for all employees involved in passenger interactions. Gate agents, flight attendants, and supervisors sat attentively, listening as facilitators highlighted the importance of equity, empathy, and vigilance. Some employees shifted nervously in their seats, aware that the CEO had personally witnessed the incident and was monitoring progress. Michael's presence loomed like a silent reminder. Accountability was not optional. Across the airline, managers were implementing new procedures to ensure proper boarding protocols. Digital systems were updated to flag priority passengers automatically, and checks were introduced to verify that staff treated all travelers respectfully and equally. Michael reviewed the updates meticulously, personally approving each step to guarantee that policy and practice aligned seamlessly. Efficiency mattered, but dignity mattered more. In the hotel, Jasmine and Jade were reflecting on the broader implications of the morning's events. "It's strange," Jasmine said, staring out the window at the city below. "Something that seemed so small just getting on a plane ended up changing so much." Jade nodded. "Yeah, and it wasn't just about us. It's about everyone who flies with this airline now." The girls felt a sense of empowerment they had never experienced before. Their father's actions had taught them that standing up for oneself could ripple outward, affecting systems and people far beyond their immediate circle. Meanwhile, Michael coordinated with airport authorities, ensuring that staff at all terminals understood the expectations moving forward. Reports came in detailing the retraining sessions, adjustments in gate protocols, and real-time supervision. Even employees not directly involved in the incident were affected. The message was clear: every interaction with passengers mattered, and bias or negligence would not be tolerated. As afternoon turned to evening, Michael returned to his family. The girls were quietly working on a journal project about their trip, sketching scenes of the airport and the airplane. "You should write about today," Michael said gently. "It's more than a story about travel. It's about fairness, courage, and standing up for what's right." Jasmine smiled, pencil in hand. "I will. I think people need to hear it." Jade nodded in agreement, adding, "And it's not just about dads, about everyone learning from today." That night, the airline's social media accounts posted updates about the training programs and policy changes, emphasizing accountability and respect. Videos from passengers who had witnessed the incident shared reflections on dignity and fairness, highlighting how one family's experience had catalyzed systemic change. Michael reviewed the posts, satisfied that the story's focus remained on principles rather than drama. The twins went to bed that night with a quiet sense of triumph. They had learned lessons that textbooks could not teach: lessons of courage, advocacy, and ethical leadership. And while they slept, Michael continued drafting strategies to ensure the airline's culture remained aligned with the values he demanded: respect, equity, and accountability. The morning would bring new challenges, but the events of the past 2 days had set a precedent. When power and responsibility intersect with moral clarity, injustice cannot stand. And for Michael Carter, his daughter's dignity was not negotiable, it was the standard. The following morning, the story had exploded across national media. News outlets, social media influencers, and passenger blogs were all abuzz with the airport incident. Video clips of Michael confronting the gate agent had been shared thousands of times, accompanied by captions praising his courage and dedication to fairness. "CEO protects daughters from discrimination" and "Airline's lesson in accountability" were trending nationwide. The twins' faces appeared in countless posts, their expressions of awe and relief immortalized in slow-motion clips from the terminal. Michael began his day by reviewing the coverage, carefully noting misrepresentations and exaggerations. "We have to control the narrative," he said to his communications director. "Not to silence the story, but to ensure it reflects our values accurately: respect, equality, and accountability. People need to see the system changing, not just the drama." He typed out statements, scheduled interviews, and approved social media posts that emphasized the corrective actions being implemented within the airline. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade were invited to speak to a local news crew. Their mother guided them gently, reminding them to speak calmly and truthfully. Jasmine began, her voice steady but soft. "It was scary at first, but my dad stood up for us. He reminded us that no one should ever be treated unfairly, no matter who they are." Jade added, "And it's not just about us. It's about making sure everyone flying on this airline gets treated the same way." The reporter nodded, impressed by the twins' poise and clarity. Across the airline, staff were beginning to feel the weight of accountability. Managers conducted additional meetings to review procedures, while gate agents and flight attendants attended mandatory workshops on bias awareness and customer service excellence. Michael had insisted that these sessions be interactive, involving real-life scenarios and role-playing exercises, to ensure staff internalized both the emotional and procedural dimensions of fairness. Even the employees who had initially been nervous began to understand the broader significance of their actions. "I didn't realize how much impact a small decision could have," one gate agent admitted during a training session. "I thought I was just following a protocol, but now I see it's about respecting every passenger, every time." Michael nodded silently, observing from the back of the room. He knew that true change required both knowledge and empathy. Policy alone was not enough. The media frenzy also prompted dialogue beyond the airport. Social media users shared personal stories of bias and discrimination in travel, sparking a broader conversation about equality in public spaces. Comment threads were filled with both support and criticism, but the dominant message was clear: fairness mattered, and it was being enforced. Michael's decisive actions had created a tangible example of how leadership could intersect with justice. Back in their hotel room, Jasmine and Jade reflected on the whirlwind of attention. "I didn't expect so many people to care," Jasmine said softly, her notebook open on her lap. Jade nodded. "It's weird, but it feels good, like people are listening." Their mother smiled, proud of their resilience. "Remember, girls," she said gently, "it's not the attention that matters, it's the principle. What your father did, and what you saw is about standing up for what's right. As evening approached, Michael returned from a series of meetings with airport management and senior staff. He had personally reviewed reports from every gate and boarding area in the network, ensuring that new procedures were being implemented properly. His attention to detail was exhaustive. No lapse could be tolerated. The airline's culture was shifting before his eyes, and he was determined to solidify it. Before bed, he sat with the twins for a few quiet moments. "Today was important," he said softly. "But remember, fairness and courage aren't just for dramatic moments. Therefore, every moment, every choice you make matters." Jasmine and Jade listened intently, absorbing every word. They had witnessed the power of advocacy, the strength of authority used with integrity, and the ripple effects that could follow a single act of justice. And as the city lights twinkled below the hotel windows, Michael Carter reflected on the day. The airport incident had ignited media attention, catalyzed systemic change, and elevated public awareness. But for him, the most important victory was the lesson imparted to his daughters. Integrity and courage were non-negotiable, and every act of protection mattered. The next morning, Michael returned to the airline headquarters with renewed determination. The incident had become a catalyst for systemic change, and he was intent on ensuring it left a lasting impact. The executive boardroom was filled with department heads, all attentive as he laid out his plan. "This isn't just about one flight or one mistake," he began. "It's about the culture we foster. We will implement mandatory bias awareness training for all staff, enforce strict oversight of boarding procedures, and introduce real-time accountability measures. No exceptions." Heads nodded, and some executives jotted down notes, while others simply absorbed the weight of his presence. Michael's tone was calm yet resolute, carrying the authority of someone who had seen both success and injustice firsthand. Every passenger must be treated with respect, dignity, and fairness. That includes children, seniors, and anyone who may seem different to staff. Discrimination, negligence, or lack of empathy will no longer be tolerated. This company represents a standard of excellence, not just in service but in moral responsibility. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Jasmine and Jade were busy recounting their experience in their journals. "I feel like I understand so much more now," Jasmine said thoughtfully, flipping a page. "It's not just about us being treated fairly, it's about everyone having the same chance." Jade nodded. "Yeah, and about standing up, too, even if it's scary." Their mother smiled warmly. "You've learned an important lesson," she said. "Courage, fairness, and integrity matter. And sometimes, one action can change a lot of things for many people." Back at the airline, Michael monitored the implementation of his directives. Digital systems were updated to flag priority passengers automatically, and supervisors were assigned to oversee compliance in real time. Every gate agent and flight attendant involved in the incident underwent additional coaching, emphasizing both procedural accuracy and empathetic service. Michael even personally reviewed their progress reports, ensuring the changes were thorough and effective. Public reaction continued to grow. Social media posts from passengers praised the airline for holding its staff accountable, while news outlets highlighted Michael's decisive intervention. Parents shared stories about how inspired they were to see a CEO prioritize fairness and justice over inconvenience. Michael followed these updates quietly, noting both the praise and criticism, but focusing on the tangible outcomes of the changes he had instituted. The twins' experience had left a lasting impression on them. They reflected on how their father had combined authority, empathy, and action to protect them. "I want to be like that someday," Jasmine said quietly. Jade nodded, determination in her eyes. "Me too, standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Their mother hugged them both, proud of how they were internalizing the lessons from an extraordinary day. Meanwhile, the airline staff felt the impact deeply. Many employees admitted that they had never fully appreciated the human side of their roles. "I thought I was just following the rules," one gate agent confessed to a supervisor, "but I didn't think about fairness or how my actions affect real people." Michael's approach had forced reflection and accountability, not punishment alone, creating an environment where ethical behavior was inseparable from operational excellence. By evening, the training sessions were completed, and new protocols had been tested and approved. Michael's careful oversight had ensured that the lessons from the incident were embedded into the airline's operations. The twins, exhausted but proud, shared a quiet dinner with their parents, recounting the events of the last 48 hours. They laughed softly, recalling the shocked expressions of passengers and staff. Yet beneath the humor lay a deeper understanding of justice, courage, and leadership. And as the city lights glittered outside the hotel windows, Michael Carter reflected on the broader impact of the events. A single incident at an airport terminal had sparked company-wide reforms, inspired public conversations about fairness, and imparted life lessons to his daughters. But more than that, it had reaffirmed his belief that power and responsibility must always intersect with morality and courage. The following day, Michael returned to the airline headquarters to personally oversee the final phase of the new protocols. While most staff had embraced the changes, a few lingering pockets of resistance remained. Employees who saw the policies as excessive or unnecessary. Michael understood that real change often met with hesitation. He called a meeting with these staff members, his presence commanding attention. "I know some of you feel these measures are strict," he began calmly, "but they are non-negotiable because respect is non-negotiable. Every passenger deserves dignity, and every staff member has a responsibility to ensure that." The room fell silent, each employee acutely aware of the seriousness in his tone. Michael continued, his words measured but resolute. "This is not about fear or punishment. It is about accountability, awareness, and growth. You will implement these procedures consistently, and you will do so because it is the right thing to do. Those who embrace this responsibility will succeed. Those who do not will face consequences." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade were being interviewed for a special feature on national television. Their parents had carefully guided them, emphasizing that the focus should be on fairness, courage, and the importance of standing up for what's right. Jasmine spoke confidently, her voice calm and clear. "It's important to always speak up," she said. "Even if it's scary, even if it's uncomfortable. Everyone deserves respect." Jade nodded, adding, "And sometimes, someone has to take action. My dad did that for us, and it made a difference." At the airline, Michael monitored both internal operations and public response. Reports indicated that employees were adjusting well to the new measures, and passenger feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Complaints about delays had been overshadowed by praise for accountability and improved service. Michael allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The systems he had implemented were not just procedural, they were cultural. They were teaching employees the value of empathy and integrity in every interaction. The twins spent the afternoon reflecting on their experiences. "I never thought getting on a plane could teach me so much," Jasmine said, flipping through the journal she had been keeping. Jade nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's not just about us being treated fairly, it's about everyone having the same chance." Their mother smiled at them. "You're learning lessons most people don't understand until much later in life," she said. "Courage, fairness, and standing up for others are powerful tools." Back at headquarters, Michael reviewed a series of internal assessments on the employees involved in the initial incident. Some had already shown remarkable growth, adjusting their behavior and demonstrating a renewed commitment to customer care. Others required additional coaching. Michael scheduled one-on-one meetings with those employees, ensuring that accountability remained personal and direct. Mistakes could be corrected, but negligence would not be tolerated. By evening, the twins were invited to a small recognition ceremony hosted by the airline. Employees, supervisors, and managers gathered to acknowledge not only the changes in protocol but also the courage of Jasmine and Jade, whose experience had catalyzed the transformation. The girls were shy at first, but as the audience applauded, they realized the impact of their ordeal had reached far beyond their own lives. Michael watched his daughter's pride swelling in his chest. He understood that leadership was more than authority, it was action, responsibility, and moral clarity. By protecting his daughters and ensuring systemic change, he had set a precedent that would ripple throughout the airline for years to come. As the ceremony ended and the family returned to their hotel, the twins reflected quietly on the day's events. "I think people really are going to listen now," Jasmine whispered. Jade nodded, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Yeah, and maybe it'll make a difference for other kids too." Their mother smiled, hugging them both tightly. "Your father taught you that courage and fairness can change the world," she said softly. "And today, you saw it happen." Michael Carter, observing them, felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The airport incident had been challenging, unexpected, and public, but it had catalyzed lasting change. Through decisive action, accountability, and unwavering commitment to principle, he had not only protected his daughters but had also transformed the culture of his airline. And in doing so, he had proven that true leadership was measured not by power alone, but by the courage to do what was right. Weeks passed since the airport incident, but the effects were still reverberating through the airline. Michael Carter had made it clear that this was not a one-time corrective measure, it was a permanent shift in culture. Staff who had once been indifferent or resistant were now embracing new protocols, understanding that respect and accountability were not merely policies but core values of the company. Michael oversaw the rollout of advanced training modules, incorporating real-world scenarios, passenger feedback, and interactive exercises to reinforce empathy and ethical decision-making. Jasmine and Jade were adjusting to the attention their story had brought. Friends at school had heard about the incident, and classmates asked endless questions, both curious and admiring. "You really made a difference," one of Jasmine's friends said during lunch. Jade smiled, realizing that their experience had transcended their own lives. They weren't just recipients of their father's protection, they were symbols of the importance of standing up for fairness and equality. Back at the airline, Michael introduced a mentorship program linking experienced employees with newer staff. The goal was simple: instill a sense of responsibility, ethical awareness, and accountability from day one. Supervisors were tasked with monitoring interactions in real time, providing immediate feedback and guidance. Michael reviewed every report personally, ensuring that the measures were effective and being implemented consistently across the network. The airport incident had highlighted gaps in both oversight and culture, and he was determined to close them completely. Social media continued to buzz. Stories of the twins' bravery and their father's intervention had gone viral internationally. News outlets featured follow-up interviews, highlighting the airline's new programs and protocols. The message was clear: when leadership intersects with moral clarity, systemic change is possible. Michael monitored these reports closely, noting how the conversation had shifted from scandal to solution. The public wasn't just captivated by the confrontation, they were inspired by the actions that followed. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Jade spent a quiet afternoon in the hotel, reflecting on their journey. "I never thought we'd be part of something like this," Jasmine said, flipping through the sketches and notes in her travel journal. "It's more than just getting on a plane." Jade nodded. "Yeah, it's like we were part of changing how people are treated." Their mother smiled, proud of their insight. "Your father didn't just protect you," she said softly. "He created a system that protects everyone. And now, you understand how powerful fairness and courage can be." At headquarters, Michael convened a company-wide virtual town hall. Employees from across the country logged in to hear his address. "This incident was a catalyst," he said, his voice steady and authoritative, "but it is only the beginning. Respect, fairness, and accountability are not optional. They define who we are as a company. Every passenger, every interaction, every decision matters. You have the power to uphold these values, and I expect nothing less." The response was overwhelming. Employees typed affirmations in the chat, expressing commitment, pride, and a sense of purpose. The twins were recognized once more, this time with a formal letter from the airline acknowledging their role in inspiring systemic change. Jasmine read it aloud to Jade, her voice trembling with emotion. "It says we helped the company become better for everyone," she said. Jade hugged her sister tightly. "We didn't even do anything on purpose," she whispered. "But it mattered anyway." Their mother nodded. "Sometimes, just being who you are, standing up, and being seen can change everything," she said. As evening descended, Michael sat with his family on the hotel balcony, gazing at the city lights. The airport incident, once a source of tension and frustration, had become a story of empowerment, transformation, and principle. His daughters had witnessed firsthand how courage, integrity, and decisive action could ripple outward, affecting not only individuals but entire systems. For Michael, the day's lessons were clear. True leadership required protection, advocacy, and unwavering commitment to justice. And as the lights of the city shimmered beneath them, Michael Carter felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The story of the twins and the airport incident had evolved from a personal conflict into a movement for fairness, leaving a lasting imprint on his airline, his employees, and, most importantly, his daughters. The weeks following the incident saw the airline gaining national recognition for its swift and decisive actions. Media outlets highlighted the story as an example of how corporate leadership could combine accountability with moral clarity. Michael Carter's name appeared in interviews, op-eds, and panel discussions about corporate responsibility, equality, and ethical business practices. But for him, the real victory lay not in the accolades, but in the systemic change and the lessons his daughters had absorbed. Jasmine and Jade were invited to participate in a community initiative focused on educating children about advocacy and fairness. Schools, youth programs, and local organizations wanted to hear their story, how two ordinary girls had been treated unfairly, and how standing up with integrity could lead to meaningful change. Their mother guided them carefully, ensuring that the twins understood the responsibility of speaking publicly. "This isn't about attention," she reminded them. "It's about teaching others to act with courage and fairness." At headquarters, Michael oversaw a final evaluation of the airline's response protocols. Data showed that compliance with the new policies was nearly universal, and passenger feedback reflected a significant improvement in experiences. Staff members had internalized the lessons, and many admitted that witnessing the twins' treatment firsthand had profoundly influenced their approach to customer care. The cultural shift that Michael had envisioned was now tangible, measurable, and deeply rooted. The twins spent time reflecting on their journey. "It's strange to think that just being us made people listen," Jasmine said softly. Jade nodded, a thoughtful smile on her face. "Yeah, but it also shows that one small act can ripple outward and affect a lot of people." Their mother smiled, brushing back Jasmine's hair. "That's exactly the lesson," she said. "You don't have to be in charge of a company to make a difference. Courage and fairness start with you." Meanwhile, the airline launched a national campaign celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion. Training programs were expanded, customer service protocols were standardized, and oversight measures were reinforced. Michael personally reviewed each initiative, ensuring that it aligned with the values he had championed: respect, accountability, and moral clarity. Employees responded positively, sharing stories of how these measures improved their interactions with passengers and strengthened the company's culture. The twins' experience continued to inspire others. Social media users shared anecdotes about standing up for fairness, while schools and community centers incorporated their story into lessons about integrity and advocacy. Jasmine and Jade became symbols not just of the challenges faced by children in public spaces, but of the power of courage and parental support. They had learned firsthand that one person's action, when guided by principle, could catalyze widespread change. In the evenings, the family gathered to reflect on the journey. Michael spoke to his daughters about the broader implications of the incident. "You've seen how courage can influence systems," he said. "But remember, real change requires consistency, patience, and persistence. Stand up when it matters, and always protect what is right." Jasmine and Jade listened attentively, absorbing the lessons like seeds planted for the future. As the city lights glimmered beyond the hotel windows, Michael felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The airport incident had evolved from a moment of injustice into a story of empowerment, accountability, and cultural transformation. His daughters had witnessed firsthand the impact of principled action, and the airline had been permanently reshaped. For Michael Carter, the story was more than a public spectacle. It was a living testament to the values he held dear. Courage, fairness, and moral clarity were no longer abstract ideals. They had been enacted, witnessed, and remembered. And as he watched Jasmine and Jade fall asleep that night, he knew that the lessons of this journey would echo throughout their lives, shaping not only their character but the world they would go on to influence.